Thank you
Hello,
so much.
everybody. Hi. So today, so thanks for attending, and thank you for that. That's a lovely introduction, wasn't it, Kaye? That was fabulous. Thank you, Nikki. That's ever so kind.
Yes.
So what we thought we'd do today is basically we thought we're here to try and help. Okay, that's kind of the key reason that we're here. And between us, we found a few key tips and tricks which we hope will help you to study smarter. Especially with Kaye's suggestion of using negativity for positivity. That's superb. But she's fabulous with all of these other things as well. So really what we want to help you to stay healthy, enjoy your university experience to the full, and we want to share our experiences and our top tips and tricks with you. And we thought the best way to present this to you would be through talking, really. So Dr. Kaye Rabel will present the top tips from her book, Improve Your Health and Wellbeing. Then I'll present the tips from your Super Quick Guide to University. We'll then go back to Kaye to present her top tips from Manage Your Time, and then back to me for the top tips from Polish Your Academic Writing. Once we've gone through that, we'll then have a look at the questions that have been posted on the Padlet, which accompanies this session. And if we've got a little time at the end of that, I've got a tiny little task for you to do. And that task is called a graduate self-letter. So you don't need to hand anything in, but it might help you to focus throughout your time at university. So then when our session's finished, it's going to be posted, I think, on YouTube as well. The recording will be there for you to watch if you want to come back to it at any other time. And you should be able to access a booklet, which is going to be all about the top tips and the graduate self-letter. So, Kaye, it's over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Helen and Nikki, for an amazing introduction. And thank you all, the attendees, people here in Zoom and watching on YouTube, for joining us. This is definitely a topic, academic success, health and well-being, that I'm very, very passionate about. And the first book that I'll talk about, Improve Your Health and Wellbeing, in light of everything that we've all gone through at the beginning of 2020 until now, and until into this year, it's really been something that when I started writing it, I didn't really understand the true impact that I would have writing it, to share the tools and the strategies in the book, but then also be able to actually reflect on them and apply them in my life. And in regard to well-being, or in health in general, one thing that I really want to emphasize is sometimes we think healthy is just about like food and exercise, but really it's a holistic process of also being mindful of the thoughts you have and the people in your life, and how they contribute to your well-being, how they contribute to supporting you into being the best version of yourself. Of course, eating healthy, exercising is great, and we definitely want to do that for our health, but also extending it to thinking about your mental health, and also your relationships, and fostering healthy relationships, and just being mindful of the people in your life, in addition to that component of eating healthy, exercising, and doing your best. And as far as being successful at university, it's also an input, because you're going to be able to do all of the things better when you are actually, when you're eating healthy, when you're exercising, when you're getting the proper amount of rest, when you have people in your life who are there for you, who are supporting you along the way. So it all comes full circle into helping you be your best self. So those are in addition to some more tips that you'll find in the booklet that Helen was mentioning, a lot more strategies that are discussed in the book, but just as a quick overview, those are some top tips. And then just also being mindful of setting goals, and thinking about that, and thinking about truly, your purpose and what you want to do in life, and making sure it all aligns. All of that too contributes to your well-being, which also funnels into being like a healthy, well-rounded, balanced person. So I've said a lot. I don't know if I've gone over my time, but I've said a lot there. So I'll hand it over to Helen and pause there. I know there's some questions in the Padlet, and I definitely want to be able to get to those.
Yep, absolutely. I think there's some brilliant questions there. Very much agree with you, what you're saying about being aware of who is in your life. I think this is a vital part and parcel of university life, and for the rest of your career and the rest of your life. And I'm very much, I didn't used to necessarily think about it too much. So I'd be friends with everybody, and you allow all sorts of people in your life. And then you realize that you're paying attention to what they say. And I think learning to deal with only quality people. And when I say quality people I mean getting rid of people who can be toxic will save you time, it will save you energy, and it will save your mental health. Because there's always that person who either starts a conversation with the phrase "at least," so at least you can do this instead. And I think Brené Brown does some fantastic work on shame, vulnerability, and empathy, and I would definitely recommend her things to look at. But sorry, I'm overstepping. I should probably focus more on the Super Quick Guide to University. So the Super Quick Guide to University. So this was a book with Sage that I really wanted to write about. Really the top tips and tricks that will help you in various different areas, because the thing is, we all go to university and just assume that everybody else knows what they're doing. They don't. Okay, that's something really quite important. And there isn't actually a manual on how you're supposed to behave and what you're supposed to do. So I kind of wanted all of the bits and pieces of the advice that I wish I'd been told when I first started at university. I wanted a book with all of those bits of information in, so that someone can dip into it and go, actually, what is a research methods project? Or what kind of language will I be using at university? Because it can be quite different and it can be quite daunting when we go to uni. So the top 5 tips really that I think of is speak up. Always speak up. And get help sooner rather than later. So if you're worried about something, if you're concerned, if you're anxious, if you're frightened, don't be frightened. Don't be worried about it. Speak up and get some help, because actually, now believe it or not, pretty much all of your lecturers and all of the people at the university will have been there before, and they've probably heard it before or actually experienced it themselves. So ask for some help, because that's actually what we're there for. We're there to help you. So don't be shy about asking for help. And that's, so you've got to learn to take advantage of the availability and the experience of others. Don't share too much personal information with your colleagues too soon, okay? Just because somebody else is on a university course with you does not mean that they are a fabulous, trustworthy person. Okay, so kind of give yourself a little bit of time to embed in your course, to embed in your studies, to find out who you are, and then have a think about what information you do actually want to share, and try and keep it to the proper university channels at first. Okay, just to give yourself a bit of a chance and a bit of a buffer to develop yourself. Take responsibility for your finances. There will be loads of people there to help you. There's the funding and money department, and they are there to support you and to guide you. And they will be able to let you know if there's any bursaries or grants or loans, anything else that you're eligible for. They'll be able to give you the guidance and the right channels to get hold of that. So always get in touch with them, because rainy days do happen. Things crop up and you might have to get a train or a bus or make a journey that you've not planned for. And if you've actually managed to get a little bit of savings, that might actually be the right, that might really help you at a time when you need it. I'm also going to say practice patience and empathy with your colleagues, because you're only ever going to see the surface. You're not really going to get to know them for a long time. So if you're empathic and if you actually trust them to reveal their story in themselves at the right time, then that's going to go a long way to actually making friends. And the other thing I'm going to say is that it might actually take you some time to find your place. Some people, they seem to settle in straight away. they're like Jenny, they've got a kitchen of 20 odd people and it's party, party, party. They're having a fabulous time. The whole of everything is just amazing. Okay. They find their friend for life and their next door neighbor. And it all seems to just slot into place perfectly. It's not like that for everybody. For some, it is brilliant. For some people, it can take a little bit longer. But eventually, we'll probably feel as though you found a new home at university. And to do that, yes, a little bit of restraint at the beginning, but actually be yourself, find out who you are, and just kind of basically be the fabulous person that you are. And don't forget that. Don't forget how fabulous you actually are. And over time, it will all actually kind of slot into place. But I mean, that's kind of the top 5 tips I'd have from the Super Quick Guide to University. There's lots of other bits and pieces, research methods and this kind of thing, how to a bit of academic writing, a bit of critical thinking, referencing, and so on. But those would be the top 5 tips, because do you know what? You can usually resit an assignment, you can retake an exam, but the memories and who you are as a person, this is a really good opportunity to embrace. So I'd kind of focus on that as well as the academic studies. So sorry. Yeah, you say about you going over time, Kaye. No.
No. That was absolutely great, and a good segue to my next title, Manage Your Time, because that's what it's all about. When I was completing my PhD, I was also working full time and, going through some things personally. And I just found myself in a whirlwind of not knowing how to prioritize everything. So I thought about, how do I manage my projects at work? And so I was like, I need to apply that to my life. I need to apply that to my life to manage my time, to prioritize everything that needs to get done with my full-time job, with my writing my dissertation, and also having a personal life, because what you just said, Helen, is absolutely important as far as making memories, spending time with friends, family, and not neglecting those people and those connections, because especially when you're going through challenging times or just being super stressed out with work and school, they really can help. So I wanted to be able to make sure that I had a balance of making sure that I was meeting my work obligations as well as my writing obligations, because I was writing my dissertation, and then also building in time to spend time with my family and friends. So my top tips, the book, the guide, it's a very step-by-step guide to show everyone how to do that, how to figure out, what tasks you need to do when, and really how to leverage different tools and resources to effectively manage your time. And as far as top tips, one of the things that I highly recommend is just getting an understanding of everything that needs to get done in order to first, before you can prioritize it, you have to know everything you need to do. So it's, being able to be mindful to look ahead to see what's upcoming and see what's happening. And then you can get a handle on prioritizing it. And next, utilizing some sort of calendar. I use the calendar on my phone, because it's integrated within Outlook, which I've used for work as well as school, and have all of the events in one place, and then color code them to know, exactly what I need to be doing and when. And I've leveraged that tool also leveraged that way of working when working on group projects when I was doing my studies as well, and found that very useful. And then just, I talk a lot about also, I know sometimes we, may not feel like doing certain things, and it's just, we might not be in the mood to write or the mood to do certain things. And it's all about just taking one step, or how to eat an elephant one bite at a time. So even though you might not feel like it, just one step at a time, one bite at a time, start small, and it will grow into something bigger. And so, yeah, and manage your time again. It's step-by-step process that walks you through the planning, prioritizing, and determining, when to do what when, and, how to use tools to help you.
Brilliant points. Really, yeah, I think that's the thing. When's the right time to sit down and write an academic piece? Oh, I can't imagine anybody actually
Never.
It's one of those things, isn't it? It's like, oh, I've got a 4,000 word assignment to write. When am I going to sit down and write it? Oh, I'll do spinning instead. Painting, anything. It's one of these things, isn't it? I must admit, procrastination is a wonderful thing. Although I have recognized something, one of the things I found recently, I found somebody suggested to me that procrastination could be a stress reflex. And I hadn't thought about this until that point. And they said, okay, when you think about procrastinating, stop. So the moment you reach for your phone and you're there and you're about to spend 6 hours or however long on TikTok, just pause, okay? Pause, hold that thought for a moment and just think, what's happened in the last 5 to 10 seconds to stop you, to disengage you from the thing you were meant to be doing? And I thought this was a brilliant idea, because it then made me think, right, okay, so what was I meant to be doing? What was the thing that stressed me out? I thought, right, okay, how can I get around this? So now what I do is the moment I reach for my phone, I either think, right, okay, is this a necessary thing? Or have I done something in the last 5 to 10 seconds or seen something that stressed me out a little bit that I don't want to deal with, a task I don't want to do? And can I actually just spend 5 minutes, just take, even setting a timer on my phone rather than going on some sort of social media, Twitter, oh, I lose hours. But I set a timer for 5 minutes, and I think if I can start that task in that 5 minutes, I'll either then complete it and respond to the email or whatever it is that's upset me, or I'll be enough into it that I'll continue and get it done. And that was one of the best things I have found recently. I just thought, oh, it's changed my life. It has also reduced my screen time massively on the phone, which yeah. So I must admit, I think managing your time is such a huge deal, isn't it?
It is. It is.
So I think with doing a PhD and working full time at the same time, that must have caused for a huge need to juggle everything.
It was a very interesting time.
The brilliant thing is, now you've got all of these tips that you're able to share with people,
right.
which is superb, isn't it?
It
I think one of the things when you mentioned about writing, so the academic writing, so one of my texts was the polish your academic writing, and that was because there's a lot of areas that I find are the same for students and for people generally, and I think some of the tips that I've picked up, or some of the things I've picked up over the time, were we often try and write in a way where, you know how earlier I said we try to be someone else, or we try and sound academic or posh, this kind of thing, but we actually don't have to. And what I find personally is I find that if somebody starts using really big words and they try and present something in a melodramatic manner, then I usually find it's because they're trying to disengage me from the subject. Now, the way I think about it is, if you love a subject, if you know about a subject, you will grab people on the street and try and tell them about it. And you try and deliver it in a way where they understand, because you want them to understand, you want to engage them with them, and you want them to be kind of like, oh yeah, I get it. I know how clever you are. I know you understand just your topic, this kind of thing. So for me, I always think if somebody's going to write something, write it in your own words. And over time, as you adhere, as you stick to the academic conventions, so you stick to the rules and regulations of academia, it actually becomes more academic. So rather than using a contraction such as don't, or won't, or couldn't, or shouldn't, do not, could, you would use do not, could not, would not, should not, this kind of thing. And that alone is enough. You don't have to use the big words. The second one I'd say is always present an objective, well-balanced argument. So make sure you include both sides of your arguments and plenty of evidence. And I mean academic evidence, okay? And that's really, it's the only way to make your point stick with your reader, is to actually say what you mean and keep saying it, keep repeating it. The next thing would be to keep to a logically organized structure. So you take your reader on a well signposted journey and you don't throw any crazy surprises, right? You start off with a plan, you stick to it, and it has to be a logical timeline. So you don't suddenly throw in a murder suspect at the end of the crime drama, this kind of thing. It has to, you have to bring things in at the appropriate time along that timeline, and be blunt. There's really never any need to flower work with unnecessary dramatic or judgmental language. So in the press nowadays, okay, it's all about somebody has slammed somebody else, okay? It's all this drama, this language, which generally speaking in academia, you've got to let the facts speak for themselves. Let the argument speak for itself, rather than being dramatic and overbuilding it, because you've got to let somebody understand something as they're reading through it. You've got to enable somebody to come to a conclusion within an argument, a balanced argument, rather than telling them what you want them to think. And that's something to remember when you're using language in an academic piece. Kind of keep it calm and keep it to the point where your actual stories, your facts, can tell the story that they need to. One of the best ones I've found for academic writing is aim for one idea per sentence, 3 to 5 sentences per paragraph, approximately 3 paragraphs per A4 side of paper, okay, or Microsoft Word document, because that's going to stop you from creating sentences that waffle on forever. And trust me, you've probably already gathered I can waffle on forever, okay? But it's, if you keep it to 3 to 5 sentences per paragraph, 3 paragraphs per page, and approximately 1 idea with a little bit of evidence per sentence, it will keep you on track. But more importantly than anything else, and this is why I'm kind of coming back to it, is you do have an academic voice, okay? Whether you realize it or not, whether you feel like the most clever, intelligent person in the room or not, you do have an academic voice. The reason you're at the university you are at is because the staff have literally wedged their career on knowing that you can do this. So the only person who doubts you being able to do this is you. So trust your voice. You do have an academic voice, which you will develop over time. And hopefully you'll be supported to do that, okay? And don't forget, you can always submit a draft, or usually submit a draft, and get your lecturers to help you on that. But I think I've probably gone on a little bit, probably too much about that one, about polish your academic writing. Yeah, don't waffle. That would be my next tip. So what we've done here is we've gone through a few of our top tips and tricks. And I think next we're going to have a look at the Padlet and see some of the questions there, weren't we, Kaye? So I think, Kaye, there's quite a lot there about manage your time. Would you like to start on that one?
Sure. Thank you, Helen. I will go through some of these. Prioritize. How do you prioritize when everything seems like it needs to be done? That's always a challenge, because there are competing priorities, and a lot of times you do feel like that. And it's in Manage Your Time, I talk about assigning a ranking order to your tasks. So it's identifying the tasks, figuring out, okay, the time frame or the timeline when everything needs to get done, then assigning a ranking order to importance. And for example, if you work and have to go to work that day, then that's probably going to be a pretty high priority. If you have a paper due and you have segmented your calendar up to figure out when you're going to write, or if you have a group meeting and you need to meet with your group members, and then there's also a party going on that night, then probably the priority should be, work, do some writing, meet with your group. if you have any energy left, then maybe go to the party, probably go home and go to sleep and get some rest. But you can figure that out. But definitely assigning like a ranking structure based on when things need to get done. And I see another one about having problems organizing work. What tips could we provide to prevent me from having to do the same work repeatedly? I like to use either, well, I have a couple of different things based on what you like. If you like to take notes, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll get a binder and organize it into sections based on my classes and keep everything in one place for each one of those classes. And that way you can kind of keep track of everything. I also do it in OneNote so that I can have like an electronic copy. And then again, utilizing my calendar to know when assignments are done, or if I have, let's say, a paper due, breaking up the time to write over across several days, or in manager time, there's an example of if you have a writing assignment, you know that before you start writing, you need to actually go search the literature, find your sources, review those, take some notes. And then that's kind of like your input to your writing, as Helen mentioned about following a logical structure, doing, an outline, figuring out how you're going to organize it. So all of those are inputs and things that I'll walk you through and manage your time about, how to say, okay, these are all the things that I need to do in order to write the paper, and plan out when you're going to do them. And I feel like if you utilize that framework, that'll also be a way to help you get organized. And then you can plan each one of those tasks in your calendar and color code them. So that also helps with organizing. And I think there's another one about procrastination and being stressed, and the tip, Helen, that you gave, I love. And as well as I think if you have a roadmap, if you have a structure, if you have a model that you can follow to help you with planning your tasks and prioritizing when things get done, that helps with the procrastination. Sometimes, I know if I have a long day, if I've prioritized all the tasks and I look at my calendar and there's lots of things that get done, in between those, I'll find time to just take a walk, go outside, get some fresh air to help get re-energized, because we can prioritize all day and we can put all these things in the calendar, but we still have to execute. And that's one thing also that, I talk about in Manage Your Time, is having the integrity to actually follow through, because that's a big component. We could have a packed calendar, but there has to be some personal accountability there to make you actually do the task, right? And so again, I think having a plan will help with that. And I definitely see another concern about prioritizing everything so that you have a social life and you aren't antisocial. And again, prioritizing and finding that balance is going to be different for different people, but I wouldn't say, set up your calendar so you're only working and only doing university things and only doing your assignments and not hanging out with friends, because that is very important. I think with the social isolation we all experienced this past year, and some people are still experiencing, shows just how important it is to have that social connection with people. So definitely make sure that when you're working out, when you need to do things and prioritizing, to include that. And I think one thing we also learn is it doesn't necessarily always have to be in person. We can definitely get in a Zoom call or FaceTime someone and have a connect and have a touch point and feel supported, and like you are interacting and being in contact with another human. But I would say to definitely make sure that you can balance that out to get everything done. And I think those are all the ones for manage your time. And Helen, I will pass it back over to you to address some of the questions for you.
Okay. I think one of the things, I think your suggestions for planning and managing your time really are quite fantastic, because I think that's one of the key things is people see planning time or managing time as how can I fit all of my work in? Whereas in reality, if you actually plan and manage your time, that's the best way to go. Oh, and that day I can binge watch Netflix for 20 hours straight because I know I've got the work done. And it's actually kind of getting your head around that, isn't it? That the planning your time, managing your time, if you do sit down and plan it and manage it and you stick to it, it gives you the time to be sociable. It gives you the time to actually go, oh yeah, okay, do you know what? I am going to sack this day off. And it also gives you guilt-free time. Because the one thing when I was a student originally, I thought, oh, I'd have a day where I'd be like, oh, I need to do that assignment. I really need to do that assignment. Oh, really, 5 minutes, half an hour. And I'd round things up to like, oh, 10 o'clock, I'll start, 11 o'clock, I'll start. 1 o'clock this afternoon, I'll start, and this kind of thing. And you get to about 10 o'clock at night and you've had a day away from your studies, but actually you've been embedded in guilt and feeling that you should have been doing your studies. So you've wasted a day that you could have been enjoying yourself with friends, but you've also wasted a day you could have been doing your studies. So the planning and managing, as Kaye says, it helps you get that balance so that you can go, do you know what? I'm going to go out, I'm going to have a really good time that night, whatever it needs. And the following day, yeah, do you know what? The following day is going to be recovery time. Okay, let's be honest, that you might need that, whatever. And then, you can get back into the studies because you've not lost time, so you kind of enjoy it a lot more. So I would say Kaye's book is really going to help you to actually get that balance between work life, study life, and party life. And party doesn't necessarily mean a huge amount of people. It can be whatever you want it to mean. So just it's kind of getting that balance right. Okay, when it comes to, so I'm just having a quick look at polish your academic writing. There's a question there about, I'd like to increase my critical thinking skills. There's a thing I use called prompt, and it's originally from the Open University. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is Tom Chatfield and Alex Baratta, I think last week, was it Jenny? They did a talk all about critical thinking. So gentle hint there, have a watch of that, all right? Because yeah, seriously, pair of them, awesome when it comes to critical thinking. Now, so there's that side of it. So I'd always recommend those to be the first port of call. However, in addition to that, there's this thing I use called prompt. And I'm just looking over here so I can remember how it goes, okay? So it starts with provenance, relevance, objectivity, method, presentation, and timeliness. So when you're reading something, it's an article, text, information, anything, whatever it is, okay, even if it's a post on Facebook, or a tip on TikTok, anything, just think about provenance. So provenance, where has it come from? Is it actually an academic source or not? Okay. Relevance, is it actually directly relevant to your work? Or is this going to take you off down a tangent or a sidetrack? And let's be honest, we all love a tangent, okay? That 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, 6 hours of mooching off into a different world is fabulous, but it's not going to help you with your work. Objectivity, is it biased or is it objective? So is someone trying to sell you something? Always have a think about that. Is this a balanced piece of work? Is it giving you both sides to the argument? And if it is, brilliant. If it isn't, have a think about what the person's agenda is. Another quick tip to see if something's objective or not, have a look to see if there's a name on it. If there isn't a name, it's often somebody who's not willing to put their name to that piece of work. So have a think where it's coming from. Method, so that's, is it clear how the information's been gathered, how it's been sourced, where's it come from, what is it, has it been gathered over time, or has it been thrown together very quickly? Presentation, is it well written and well presented? Now, okay, some of the best con articles I've ever seen have been really well presented. So it's no guarantee that something looks fabulous, okay? That if something looks fabulous, that it isn't rubbish. But it can be a good starting point for you to think about. So how is it presented? Timeliness, is it current, up-to-date information? Usually I suggest to my students within the last 5 years, but things are moving very quickly. So you've got to use your common sense and keep in touch with your lecturers. Is that appropriate for your subject, the timeline that you're looking at? Because there's nothing wrong with using a classic text, but is that information still correct is the key, okay? So I'd always say prompt, provenance, relevance, objectivity, method, presentation, and timeliness, all right? That's how I'd kind of look at that one. When it comes to how do I make my writing easier to understand, I think it comes back to really planning a structure. So if you plan a structure and you create this logical flowing journey through your work, it's going to help engage your reader and keep their focus, because you're going to take them on this line. Keep referring back to your topic and stay focused. Don't wander off as a tangent, as that will cause confusion. And if you think about, so any decent stand-up comedian, usually towards the end of their sketch or the end of their session, will kind of bring you back to the very first statement. So always think about that. How do you keep referring back, okay? So probably it's about planning. If you plan your structure, because it is the most important part of any assignment, it's the planning, the bit before you even start typing. In fact, I'd even go as far to say that before you start typing, plan it out as either a map, like a mind map, or a timeline, or whatever works for you. Just plan it. And then when you're writing some of the tips, when you're writing that, some of the tips in the Polish for Academic Writing will hopefully help. So paragraph, sentence creation that we've discussed earlier. And don't forget to proofread, because making your writing easier to understand, if you proofread it and actually read it out loud, or get someone else to read it out loud to you, that's a brilliant way to find out if it actually makes sense when it's spoken about. One of the things I like to do is I get the computer to read it back to me, because that, when it's in an automatic or mechanical voice, you kind of go, yeah, it really doesn't sound how I felt it was going to sound. The other thing that I do is, which is one of the best things ever, is if you actually take a little bit of time away from it, because if you're still in that zone, if you're still in that academic written piece, you might not see the errors. You might see what you think you've written rather than what you've actually written. So if you take some time away from it and then pretend as though you're reading to someone you're a little bit scared of, okay? Sounds a bit weird, but basically, see, I used to pretend I was reading it to my dad because I didn't want to disappoint him, all right? And that was fine. But then I realized I'm not scared of my dad. I just want him to be proud of me. And then he completely ruined all of that by saying he's very proud of me. I was like, oh, you know, now I don't have to try. It's one of those things. But so I pretend I'm reading this to somebody who's a bit scary. Okay, now for me, I use Hannibal Lecter from the Silence of the Lambs films, because I think, well, if I make an error, you know, it's not going to work out well for me. So in my head, I read this out to somebody who I think is slightly terrifying, and that works well. The other thing that a lot of my students use is they pretend they're reading their work out as a speech at a graduation ceremony, something like this, okay? Because that way you think, I wouldn't want to be humiliated in front of my peers, in front of my colleagues. So that's a good opportunity there. And that kind of helps people to make their writing so it can be better understood. I can see there's one here. How can I improve my level 4 writing abilities and do really well in my undergraduate studies? I want a grade of about 85% and above. Okay, focus on your learning outcomes. In each and every module that you attend or attempt, there will be learning outcomes somewhere. Okay, focus on those. Keep checking. Have you answered the question? Have you answered your learning outcomes? And ask your lecturer if you can submit a draft. You are paying a lot of money to study at university. Use it. Okay, make the most of it. Make the most of the time that you have with your lecturers. You may be allowed to submit one draft or more. You may have a certain time frame limit on submitting a draft, but make a plan, make a draft, and submit it sooner rather than later. If you wanted to get more than 85%, I would honestly make sure also that you really pay attention to the proofreading, because that's where I think a lot of the points are lost. And moving level 4 up into level 5 and beyond, I think that is about criticality. So I'm going to refer you either to the prompt thing that I was going on about, or Tom Chatfield and Alex Barata, because that's where the points are. Okay, it's in the critical thinking. finding the appropriate and correct evidence, presenting it properly, presenting a balanced argument, and making sure you evidence your critical thinking and the breadth and depth of reading that you've done for your assignments. That's going to get you into the above 85%. Yeah. Okay, what do you think about the improving your health and well-being? There's a question there about stress.
Sure, there's a question there about stress, and I was just listening to your tips and definitely agree with them all. And having the computer read back to me is one that I definitely live by for when I was studying as well as work, to make sure my emails are clear and concise, to make sure my writing is clear and concise. Pick up a lot of things that way. So love that one, Helen. Yeah, I see if we improve your health and well-being, that this person finds university to be a lot more stressful, and that they struggle to complete some assessments. And, what advice would I have? I would say, first, let's get to the root of the stress. What's causing you the stress? Are you finding that it's difficult to complete everything? Do you need to implement some time management strategies to help you manage your time and make sure that you're not feeling overwhelmed and pressured? Are there some aspects of your well-being that you need to look after to help make sure that you are feeling your best to meet the challenges at university and to complete your assessments? So I would say start there, to first identify what are all of the causes of the stress. Is it being overwhelmed with being away from family while you're at university? Is it the amount of things that are happening? Is it a relationship or a lack of a relationship? I would say first find out what's causing out all of the stress. And if it's just being overwhelmed, I would definitely point you to the Manage Your Time book so that you can follow the strategies discussed in there to prioritize everything. And also kind of going back to the other question about prioritizing social life and not being antisocial. One of the things that I also talk about in Manage Your Time is rewarding yourself for accomplishing whatever goal that you set out to do, and also setting goals. I think achieving things and following through in the time management scope is also having goals, setting goals, and then there should always be some sort of reward, and it's best for you to figure that out. But yep, I think it's understanding the cause of the stress and feeling, I feel like if you have a plan and you know how to prioritize, that'll help alleviate some of the stress. And then the next piece is just following through. And if you know what your reward is and what you have to look forward to getting for after completing or accomplishing that goal, then that will help to kind of give you the motivation to get through completing all of your tasks. All right, Helen, I think.
Oh, I like that about focus on the goal. Yep. See, that's the only way I've ever managed to achieve a diet. Focus on the cake at the end of the week. it's one of those things, isn't it? But yeah, what is that outcome going to be? And that's one of the things, if we get some time at the end to do the graduate self letter, that's really kind of focusing on what is your goal, what is your outcome.
Yep.
So, it is one of the things that we need to think about. Just looking through here, so I'm looking at get your data from experiments. I find maths really difficult. Lots of people do, and it is a real. Some people are really actually genuinely frightened of maths as well. Try to decrease that through practice. All right. What I'm going to suggest is the best things I find is actually looking at maths from a practice opportunity. Okay, so we have the GCSE bite-sized maths, which is a really good place to start. each and every university will have an academic skills department or learning skills or study skills department, whatever it's called, and they will be able to help you practice with maths. Your tutor will usually be able to give you some extra bits and pieces as well. So I know that whenever my students are feeling a little bit worried, a little bit concerned about mathematics, that we will just have an extra couple of sessions and we'll do an extra bit of work on that together to try and decrease fears and worries and concerns about maths. Because mathematics is a logical process. It's one of the brilliant things, okay? You kind of, it will never mess around with you, you know? So sometimes with a qualitative elements with theories and with feelings and this kind of thing, when you're doing that type of research, that you can get a bit confused the way things are presented, but mathematics, it's always blunt and it's how you wish to interpret it. So I would always say with mathematics, actually have a think about who can help you to get to narrow down which area is causing concern, which area you're not comfortable with, and find the right people to help you with that, whether that's study skills, academic skills, learning skills, or your tutor, and they will have a raft of information. And if they're into experiments, particularly quantitative experiments, so statistical analysis, you will never be able to shut them up about maths and stats, I can promise you now, okay? So I'd really give it a whirl, okay? Don't be shy in asking for help on that. I'm just going to move on to the ones for your super quick guide to university, because I am aware of the time here, okay? So the super quick university, I'm worried I won't manage on my student loan. The thing I would say there is budget. Okay, get in touch with your funding and money department at the university. They'll be able to find out if there are any loans, grants or bursaries that you'll be eligible for. So they'll be able to give you a hand with that. And the other thing I would suggest there is one of the best places in the world is there's a website called themoneysavingexpert.com from Martin Lewis, and the hints and tips and tricks and freebies they have there for students are amazing. Sign up to uni days, to Totem, to Student Beans, everything that is produced by the NUS, and you will get all sorts of free stuff. I think with your student union card, you probably get I think it's a free McFlurry you can get from McDonald's. You can get discount on Amazon. You can get Amazon Prime free for 6 months. There's all sorts of things available out there for you as a student. But managing on a student loan can be really difficult, especially if you have children who are managing on that as well, and this type of thing. So I would always say budget, okay? So there are quite a few hints and tips in the super quick guide on how to budget and how to save money as well. And one thing my mum always suggests is buy the supermarket own make rather than the brand label, because it's usually just as good quality, sometimes better, and a lot cheaper. You know, so if you like your biscuits, you'll always find a better biscuit by the supermarket. Probably shouldn't say that. The next thing is that everybody's cleverer than I am and seems to find the work really easy. Yeah, no, they're not. And no, they don't. Okay, that's simple and blunt. No, you are in the right place at the right time. You are on the course because your lecturer has chosen you to be on that course. It's not an accident that you're there. So no, everybody is learning this. And in fact, what I'm going to say is we are all winging it. Okay, as human beings, generally, everybody's winging it, some more confidently than others, and don't believe the WhatsApp groups. Okay, so when you see I got such and such from my assignment, yeah, no, they probably didn't. And even if they did, that's not your learning journey, that's theirs. Okay, so please remember that social media, if you see something on social media is kind of there for boasting and for bigging things up and promoting, you know, the best image. It doesn't really sit very well with academia, because academia is about the long, slow process, and it's about building things bit by bit over time. It's not about, I got this for this assignment. It's actually really more a case of, I found this fantastic textbook and it's really good and I think I'll keep it. That's the thing. So try not to be drawn into this, I got this mark, because it's not really relevant. The other thing I would say is that don't ever let anybody else make you feel inferior. And if they do, they're a toxic human being, and keep away from them. And it kind of comes back to what Kaye was saying earlier about health and well-being. It's not just about nutrition, It's not just about exercise, it's also about the people in your life. So try and keep quality people on you, the people who are going to be honest with you and go, yeah, do you know what? Let's set up a study group together. Let's work together on this. Let's help each other, rather than somebody who's going to just make you feel bad, because that's not worth your time. Okay. Looking at this, okay.
I just want to add one thing, Helen, that I thought about. I saw someone about a question in the question and answer chat about just dealing with, processing everything that's happened during the pandemic, and also kind of going back to the question about stress as well, that someone left in the Padlet. It brings me back to also a tip that you gave about get help early and get help often. Mental health is something that is extremely important. And I would also suggest, I know a lot of universities provide access to mental health professionals. And that is something that I would also highly recommend as well, in order to just process in general with different life stresses that we encounter. And then especially with everything that we've encountered during the pandemic. I personally have lost family members and friends and things as a result of it. And it's been a very traumatic time. So I think just adding that piece to check about the availability of mental health professionals at your university that you can reach out to, or other professionals, because that is also very important to be able to have that help and that assistance to help you learn tools to process everything that you're going through and feeling. So sorry to interrupt.
It's a really good point. No. It's a really good point, actually. It's something that I did want to mention as well, because one of the things is it's just recently been Mental Health Awareness Week, and I think it's something where we don't necessarily realise how much support is available. So at the moment, there's a movement in Wales called the Time to Change Champions Wales. So it's Time to Change Wales. And that's all about making the conversation around mental health to be more open and more accessible. And I think that's really important, because they run a charity set up for students as well. So it's Time to Change, and they're really good. But we also have Mind and the Samaritans, and there are so many bodies available to help you. And it's something that we don't really talk about enough. But at a university, you're going to have a counselling department, you'll have a health and wellbeing department. There should be an inclusion department as well. So counselling, and there will be a chaplaincy department as well. Now, one of the things I've often found is that students will come to me and say, well, I don't really want to talk to the chaplains because it's all about religion. It's not. Okay. What I would say is, if you have a chaplaincy department as well, have a think about approaching somebody from there if you need to talk or want to talk, because it's not just about faith, it's about talking to people and about being listened and recognizing that you're not alone. So there's all of these different people. I think there's quite a lot of stuff in the pipeline as well at universities to help support our students, because it is a really huge concern, and we do need to be doing more and more for health and well-being. I would say there's quite a lot of stuff available. Personally, I feel mindfulness is an excellent tool, I think, for helping us be aware of the time, aware of the present. And I think with Kaye's book, The Manage Your Time, that will help you plan in possibly some time for mindfulness or considering resilience and this type of thing. But I think it is really important to focus on who is available at your university to help you, how can they help you, and who is available in your wider community as well, because there are a lot of people available. There's a lot of charities and a lot of bodies to help you. So that's something I would say there. Looking through, I've seen some questions about quantitative work, limiting themes and study groups. So just to let you know, so quantitative work, yeah, it can be really difficult to limit your themes, but just really think about what is the most relevant thing to your hypothesis. What's the most important thing? Just consider what is the key there. Ask your supervisor as well. Okay, they have a handle on your work. They've helped you create the questions. They've helped you create the work. Ask them what they would think. What would they advise? What would they support you with? What did you say about study groups? How do you get access to them? There should usually be a staff directory or a university campus directory or even a switchboard who you can find out who is available and which departments are available to you to give you help and support. But the other type of study group is actually having a chat with your colleagues, so your friends, the other people, the other students on the course, and asking them if they want to create a study group together with you. Okay. So is there anything else we need to cover there at the moment? Ooh, how can we approach our tutors? Email them. I would honestly say just ask. Just email. I know that if you can't get through on a phone, because sometimes I think over the past academic year, sometimes phone lines haven't been connected through to people who are working remotely, email them or message them. You're bound to have some sort of VLE, a virtual learning environment, available to you of some description. Use that to message your tutor, or possibly Microsoft Teams, or private message them if you're on a Zoom call, or email them and ask them for help or support. And if you can't get that from your tutor, find a different tutor who you can approach, because there will be somebody there to help you who is available at some point. That's what I kind of think about that, because I think it is really important that if you do have concerns, issues, worries at any time, speak up, just raise your voice on that. I don't think we're going to have time for the graduate self letter today, I'm afraid. Sorry, Jenny.
That's all right. I think it was really good to answer all the questions that were asked, so I think that was really important. We could maybe send it out as an email after the event as a little task. So I'll catch up with you afterwards and we can sort of put something together to send out to everyone afterwards.
Is there anything we've missed there, or are there any other questions we need to raise?
I think you've covered everything.
Okay. Thank you so much for attending today. It's been really lovely to have so many people come along.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all. Wonderful questions, and very grateful to you all for coming to listen to our discussion today.
Good luck. Have some fun.
I've just remembered the most exciting part, the prizes.
Oh, the giveaways.
Free stuff. Oh,
we
cool.
got the prizes. So everyone,
oh,
I'll do a lucky dip from the people that were attending, maybe, because some people have logged out because we're coming to the end of the event. So I'll just do a lucky dip and get in touch with the people that have won. So we've got some goodie prizes that are some Sage things, and also a copy of the book of your choice that have been talked about in this event. So I will be in touch with the winners today. I'll pick out the winners from that.
Brilliant.
We started talking and got carried away. Missed the time, but I enjoyed it. But I hope everyone else did.
You see, this is the thing, and so this is brilliant, thank you. But it's one of those things, and I do want people to recognise this, that actually lecturers, people in academia, are human beings, and give us a chance to talk, and we won't shut up. It's terrible. So if you do want help with anything, just message. Just even. Yeah, I think I'm really hoping that this has helped some people today. And thank you for the lovely comments in the chat, everybody.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Helen and Kaye. That was great, and I'm sure that there's been a lot of questions answered there. I think at the end of the academic year, it's quite nice to be able to reflect on everything and sort of see how we can change how we're going to sort of approach the next academic year. And I think that's been really useful with that. So thank you very much. So I'll be sending out an email with a link to the event video, and also with links to the products on our website that are discounted at the moment, and any other information from the event. So we'll build a really informative email, and it will be coming out within the next couple of days, so keep an eye out for that. And as I said, we will be having events next year. So if you are interested, just agree to the marketing on Eventbrite, and then you'll get all the information as it comes along. And thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you for inviting us.
Thanks ever so much.